A very warm welcome and a good morning to Morning Express. I am Violet Mguelo. You're watching Galaxy News on channel 500. And these are your headlines for this half an hour. The Economic Freedom Fighters Democratic Alliance welcomes the VBS arrest, while close to 4,000 schoolgirls impregnated in Kenya during COVID-19 lockdown. The World Health Organization issues advisory on the dexamethasone use. And Johnson's vehicle re-ended a Kurdish protesters target UK Parliament. And Philonisor urges the UNHCR to probe police killing in America. Now, with over 1,200 tests conducted, there are now a total of 80,412 positive identified cases, with 4,331 recoveries, totaling 55.13% of the overall cases. The stats also revealed that there are now 1,674 fatalities and 4,708 new cases. Now, this comes as South Africa joins the top 10 most affected countries in the world, behind Saudi Arabia, France, and in 9th and 8th respectively. The US, with over 2 million of the world's total of 8.3 million, with 880 deaths, leads the charts, while Brazil, Russia, India, and Peru round off the top 5 affected countries. While Pakistan, with 760,000 cases, followed by Bangladesh with 98,489, are also amongst the other top 10 affected countries. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced on Wednesday that sit-down restaurants, cinemas, non-contact sports codes like tennis, conferencing facilities and personal care service will be opened with strict safety protocols. Addressing the nation on Wednesday evening, Ramaphosa reminded South Africans that social distancing remains of the most powerful weapons the global has in its arsenal to manage and contain the spread of COVID-19 until a vaccine is developed. The ANC head said that despite the easing of some regulations, certain restrictions on movement would therefore remain in place to protect the health of all South Africans, especially those who are at high risk. Let's take a look and listen to President.
In the midst of this life-destroying pandemic, we are greatly encouraged by news this week of a breakthrough in the treatment of COVID-19. A study by the University of Oxford in Britain has found that the drug dexamethasone, which is also manufactured here in South Africa by one of our pharmaceutical companies, and of which there is ample supply, has reduced deaths amongst patients on ventilation by a third. The Department of Health and the Ministerial Advisory Committee has recommended that this drug can be considered for use on patients on ventilators and those who are on oxygen supply. We believe that this will improve our management of the disease among those who are most severely affected. Since the start of the outbreak, there's been 80,412 confirmed coronavirus cases in South Africa. Of these, 44,331 people, or around 55%, have recovered.
And meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his capacity as chair of the African Union, emphasized that the continent needed to bolster and strengthen the multilateral system and support to international institutions that guide the continent's response to the COVID-19 crisis. The president, speaking at the virtual extraordinary China-Africa Solidarity Summit against COVID-19, heaped praise on the summit, saying that it demonstrates the depth and resilience of solidarity between China and Africa.
Therefore, launching the Africa Medical Supplies Platform tomorrow, which is a groundbreaking marketplace to enable all African countries to access critical supplies. As things stand, however, many African countries are having to purchase goods with resources largely obtained from the multilateral agencies. We would like to ask China to consider support for the provision of diagnostic and therapeutic supplies, more of those over a period of 6 months. This support would be managed by Afri-Exim Bank in collaboration with its counterpart in China. The two would manage those resources that should be made available to Africa. This would allow several African countries to procure goods from suppliers in China. As the AU, we have established an African COVID-19 response fund as a key intervention to mobilize and direct resources towards the continent's response to this challenge. The economic global downturn has dealt a severe blow to the African continent, as it has to the rest of the world. The AU has been in the forefront of mobilizing international support for a comprehensive economic stimulus package for Africa. We have called for debt relief as well as cancellation for African countries that are indebted, including a 2-year debt standstill and a plan for the restructuring of both private as well as bilateral debt. To provide additional liquidity to shore up the private sector, Africa has called for the international community to avail some unused...
Now, currently, Africa has over 250,000 confirmed infections and more than 6,700 deaths. And the former South African head of state, Mr. Jacob Zuma, says he would like to see a robust debate by the youth and scholars and everybody about land and resources during the Youth Month. In a brief clip, Zuma said this kind of debate would help the country move forward. Let's take a look.
Where the best, the huge resources of the country that are national resources are finally to a few when the majority is not having anything. So the youth must discuss these matters. On the Youth Month, I would want to see very, very robust debate by the youth, by the scholars, by everybody. If we do so, this country will move forward. But if we don't do so, we are going to sit with the squatters for decades to come. And I think it is all in our hands. Thank you very much.
And earlier in the week, the former SA head of state in Extra Tech interview forming part of an 8-part series named Zooming with Zuma has lamented that he labeled as a problem Africans have, which is becoming instruments of white people.
Yeah. But at the center of this is an African child. Absolutely problematic for me. Ukubona ama-Afrika eodokotela eoprofessor kodwa ecabangisa kwabelungu. That's a problem I have. If not just ucabangisa kwabelungu, but to be instruments of white people. Yes. Yabona ifike ngibulala. Njengamanje nginesifiso kunendawo engayiphiwa inkosi ngapha. Inkosi yakalokhuzana le ngale.
And DA Shadow Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Celia Brink, welcomed the arrest of former insiders of BBS Mutual Bank, as reported by numerous media outlets on Wednesday. In a statement, Colliers pointed out that the DA had been the first complainants in a number of complaints related to the looting of BBS, which they had been worried about with regards to the lack of progress in the case. According to Brink, it is unlikely that the money in the amount of $2 billion billion rands in municipal funds will be recovered. Bring added that while several mayors and municipal officials did resign in the wake of VBS-related investigations, many seemed to have escaped serious consequences even as they left municipalities in financial distress. Citing one case, the DA MP said a CFO of a municipality in the Northwest resigned before a disciplinary action could be taken against her, only to reappear in Limpopo a few months later as a municipal manager. In addition, Brink stated that while the scope of the VBS case is far bigger than just the municipal functionaries who enabled the looting, the DA believes that the case presents an excellent opportunity to test or at least leverage the criminal sanctions created by the South African municipal legislation.
As a complainant in many of the cases related to the looting of VBS, the DA welcomes the arrests that have been made. We've been worried that this case has taken too long, and we hope the next arrests to be made will be of officials and politicians who have stolen almost 2 billion rand from municipalities. The prosecuting authority will find that municipal laws give them a lot of firepower to secure at least some of these convictions.
Meanwhile, the EFF also welcomed the arrest of all people who are accused of acts of corruption and criminality that related to the vendor bank, Services Mutual Bank.
Today, members of the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, DPCI, conducted a simultaneous search and seizure operations in 10 premises in Gauteng and Limpopo provinces. The team also executed warrants of arrest on 4 suspects. 3 other suspects are expected to hand themselves today. The 8th suspect has been affected by COVID-19 quarantine requirements. So as soon as all of the relevant processes are completed, we will be securing the attendance of the 8th suspect also in court.
The EFF further welcomed the commitment by the DPCI that no stone will be left unturned in concluding these investigations and that everyone involved in the wrong will be held accountable.
It was decided to charge the suspects with 47 counts of various criminal offenses. These are 5 counts of the pattern of racketeering activities in contravention of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. That is the POCA. 12 of these counts are of theft, common law offense. 7 of these are for fraud, which is also common law. 15 counts are corruption, that is in terms of the contravention of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. 7 counts are of money laundering in terms of the POCA legislation.
The team also has to be meticulous and painstakingly go through all the evidence with a fine-tooth comb. We have to do this in order to ensure that in the end, justice does prevail and the rule of law prevails as well. We owe it to all the investors of the bank, in particular the elderly men and women of Limpopo and beyond, who lost their hard-earned earnings and lifetime savings.
And Morning Express quickly goes to a break. When we come back, more stories follow after this.
From rural to urban, we bring you local and international sport.
See Khaleesi. From Cape to Cairo, from Nairobi to Kinshasa.
As we stand out amongst the rest.
And we are here to inspire you.
From the Horn of Africa to the Equator's indigenous people.
Galaxy Universal Network.
Abapenyi bezindaba nezintatheli ezingesabilutho.
Bila woga, upendeleo, hatuogopi chochote.
Channel 500 on Starset. This is Galaxy Universal Network.
And welcome back to Morning Express. Remember, you're still tuned to Galaxy News on Starset, Channel 500. Now, in our top stories, researchers in England say they have the first evidence that a drug can improve COVID-19 and survival. A cheap, widely available steroid reduced death by up to 1/3 in severely ill hospitals. The results were announced on Tuesday, and the British government immediately authorized the drug use across the United Kingdom for coronavirus patients like those who did well in the study. Researchers say they would publish results soon, as several independent experts say it's important to see details to know how much of a difference the drug might make and for whom. The study led by the University of Oxford was a large, strict test that randomly assigned 2,104 patients to get the drug, dexamethasone, and compared them with 4,321 patients getting only casual care. The drug was given either orally or through an IV for 10 days. After 4 weeks, it had reduced deaths by 35% in patients who needed treatment with breathing machines and by 20% in those only needed supplemental oxygen. It did not appear to help less ill patients. While researchers estimate that the drug will prevent 1 death for every 8 patients treated while on breathing machines and 1 for every 25 patients on extra oxygen alone. Now, there's this distinction, if you like, between the early phase and the later phase. What we are seeing today is for patients who need oxygen, for patients who need machines to help them breathe. Those patients, their chances of survival will be improved if they took the dexamethasone, said Dr. Martin Landry, one of the study leaders from the University of Oxford. While many hospitals and doctors have been trying to steroids to quell the immune system, but there's been no evidence from high-quality studies that it helps for COVID-19. Now, until now, the only drug shown to help it is the remdesivir, an experimental drug from Gilead Sciences that blocks an enzyme that the virus used to copy its genetic material. And in Ghana is West Africa's most impacted nation behind Nigeria. At a point in May 2020, Ghana led the regional caseload. June has started with progressive lifting of more virus restrictions, while President Akufo-Addo in his 10th address announced that while borders remain closed, some categories of academic institutions are allowed to resume. Religious places can also reopen with strict conditions and the observances of health protocols. The social gathering, weddings and funerals will be allowed under certain conditions. Amongst others will be a maximum 100 participants. As the 2020 poll looms, even political activity is allowed to be undertaken. Now, this article will be a focus on tracking case increases and major developments from the West African country. The head of Ghana's Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Dance Salbi, announced on Monday that she had tested positive for COVID-19. She made the disclosure in an interview on local network. She said the decision to test was after she started experiencing tiredness and bodily pains and headaches. She asked for her ample to be taken for a test, subsequent to which the positive results returned. She went into self-isolation to prevent her from exposing others of the virus. Dr. Densen Selby also contacted those she had come into contact with to go for a voluntary testing. The Ghana News Agency added that while she became the fourth known government official to have tested positive for COVID-19, the first being Papa Owusu Okoma, Ghana's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, who has since recovered. The case of the minister's infection has attracted social media debate after a journalist reported that the minister had denied he had tested positive rather than he was only retesting a major health facility in the capital of Accra. This confirms the confirmed cases in Ghana count to 11,964, with the number of deaths still at 54. Recoveries lead by 4,258, with active cases that are 7,652. These are the results that came from Johns Hopkins University statistics as valid of June 14th, 2020. And meanwhile, in Kenya has reported a sudden surge in teen pregnancies in one single country over a period of 5 months, thus threatening to cut short the pursuit of education among school-going girls. Machakos County, located the northeastern province in Kenya, that is leading several other counties in terms of teenage pregnancies in Kenya. This is according to Kenya's Health Information System survey. While the data shows that a total of 3,964 girls aged between 19 years and below were reported pregnant within that period. Machakos County's Children Officer Salom Motama said the reported pregnancy cases among schoolgirls are much less than the actual numbers. During this coronavirus pandemic, he said, and I quote, "We do not have 4,000 impregnant girls. These are so many innocent girls." This is what she said. Now, she further stated that she reiterated that most of these cases were as a result of deferment by close family members. She added that about 200 of these girls are aged 14 years and below. She said, "How can a 12-year-old girl become a mother?" as she posed. And all the people who have impregnated these children need to be regained, but it is becoming a challenge. We need special court sittings to address and deal with these cases, Salome appealed. And in some international stories, with the World Health Organization, the Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that the dexamethasone, which is the first treatment to be shown to reduce mortality in patients with COVID-19 requiring oxygen or ventilator support, should be used under close medical supervision. Dexamethasone is a steroid that has been used since the 1960s to reduce inflammation in a range of conditions, including inflammatory disorders and certain cancers, which has been listed on the World Health Organization model, a list of essential medicines since 1977 in multiple formulations, and is currently off patients and affordably available in most countries. According to Ghebreyesus, researchers shared initial insights about the results of the trial with the World Health Organization and said that they are looking forward to the full data analysis that is incoming in the next games.
Today with us we have Dr. Tedros, as all.
There have been more than 435,000 deaths in the Americas, Africa, and South Asia. Cases are still rapidly rising. However, there are green shoots of hope, which show that together, through global solidarity, humanity can overcome this pandemic.
We have our Director for Neglected Tropical Diseases here, Dr. Mwele Malachala, who can talk more.
These drugs should only be used under close clinical supervision. We need more therapeutics that can be used to tackle the virus, including those with milder symptoms.
We will start with the questions.
Well, with that said, right here, Morning Express, we leave you, but we do not leave you alone, as Galaxy Sports comes up next with Mr. Dumilia Mateza.
From rural to urban, we bring you local and international sport.
From Cape to Cairo, from Nairobi to Kinshasa.
As we stand out amongst the rest.
And we are here to inspire you.
From the Horn of Africa to the Equator's indigenous people.
Galaxy Universal Network religisa ditaba tse felletseng
abapenyi bezindaba nezintatheli ezingesabilutho
bila woga upendeleo hatuogopi chochote.
Channel 500 on Starset. This is Galaxy Universal Network.
From rural to urban, we bring you local and international sport.
From Cape to Cairo, from Nairobi to Kinshasa.
As we stand out amongst the rest.
And we are here to inspire you.
From the Horn of Africa to the Equator's indigenous people.
Galaxy Universal Network religisa ditaba tse felletseng
abapenyi bezindaba nezintatheli ezingesabilutho
bila woga upendeleo hatuogopi chochote.
Channel 500 on Starset. This is Galaxy Universal Network.